may have seen my most recent video where I compared Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl with their original DS counterparts. If you haven't seen it and you feel like checking it out, I'll put an annotation right here and I'll link to it at the end of the video. Wait, there's no need to leave just yet. As while there are a couple of references here to what I said in that video, there's no need to worry if you didn't watch it first. To quickly summarize, in that video I discussed the various expectations that fans held leading up to the game's release, and the subsequent subversion or outright ignorance of those expectations on behalf of the Pokemon Company. I expressed my displeasure with some of the design decisions that went into the games, what content they decided to cut, and the state that the games were initially released in. Based on that video, you may assume I don't like the Gen 4 releases, which isn't wrong, but Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl actually do a few things quite well. I can't rant about games all the time, so I decided to address them and give credit where credit is due. I think it was first introduced in Sword and Shield with the Box Link item, but the ability to access your Pokemon PC from within the pause menu is an absolute blessing that I never knew I needed. Now you no longer need to travel all the way to a Pokemon Center in order to switch around your party, which is amazing for when you're accepting Pokemon from NPCs. The only issue that this causes is it further de-escalates the tension and difficulty. Since you can switch out your fainted Pokemon whenever you want, there's no threat of fainting or blacking out anymore. But all in all, I think it's a quality of life improvement I can definitely get behind, and maybe it could be rebalanced and tweaked in the future. I know what you're thinking. Didn't I list this as a negative aspect of the game in my previous video? Yes. I feel like the party-wide EXP sharing is one of the biggest contributors to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's lack of difficulty. However, the inclusion of EXP sharing wasn't the issue. It was the lack of rebalancing the rest of the game's Pokemon battles to accommodate the sheer over-leveling that your party undergoes. That's the issue. If the rest of the trainers were rebalanced like the Elite Four, Cynthia, and the Gym Leader rematches, I wouldn't have had a problem with the EXP share, as it definitely makes team building and grinding a lot more streamlined. I don't know about you guys, but when I first thought about a Diamond and Pearl remake on Switch, I was unsure if the Pokédex would cause issues with porting it over. My first assumption was that they'd either need to redesign the game without the Pokédex somehow, or they'd need to reorient it as its own pause submenu. When I first acquired the Pokédex in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl after arriving in Jubilife City, I was pleasantly surprised with how unobstructive and intuitive it was to have the Pokédex in the top right corner of the screen. Now acting as part of the HUD, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's Pokédex can be enlarged by pressing R and subsequently minimized just as easily, so that you can interact with it by either using the touchscreen when undocked or using the in-game cursor when docked. And there were a few new Pokédex apps to reflect some of the changes that were made. It is a little annoying that they decided to just keep one Pokédex navigation button, so if you overshoot an app you're looking for, you have to cycle through the whole list in order to get another shot at it. But it's trying to be faithful to Diamond and Pearl, so it makes sense that they wouldn't integrate an amazing quality of life feature from Platinum. While I do have problems with the Grand Underground, the addition of Pokemon Dens is kind of a mixed bag. It's really useful and cool to be able to explore underground caverns to find rare and more powerful wild Pokemon. However, the Pokemon in Dens would very quickly become overpowered, difficult to catch, and frankly broken to have if you acquired them too early. And while I'm not a fan of how they decided to implement underground bases, as I preferred the choice of furnishings you used to have rather than just trying to fit as many statues in a room as possible, this wasn't a bad decision in regards to giving underground bases a purpose outside of multiplayer. Now, even if you don't engage in the online functionalities within the underground, you're still incentivized to invest your time into your underground base, even if it's just placing your statues most efficiently for what Pokemon you're trying to find in Dens. I don't know about you, but I've always hated day gems. Yes, it added an extra layer of contemplation as to whether or not you wanted to permanently lock a Pokemon's move slot, unless of course you went to a daycare or move tutor. But this more often than not led me to designate a single Pokemon as an HM slave, teaching it the HMs I needed for normal progression and allowing it to eat up a slot within my party, even though I had no intention of using them in battle. In Gen 4, this Pokemon would most often be Bidoof or Bibarel, as they were able to learn almost every HM aside from Fly. Now, in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, you can use every HM without having to overwrite any of your team's movesets or having to designate a party slot to have them with you. I can't tell you how amazing this is, as I used to get so annoyed whenever I either didn't have a Pokemon that could learn a specific HM, or I forgot my Bibarel on the PC, leading to a trek down Mount Coronet because I decided to not buy it in Escape Road. It can be annoying having to navigate to the Pokédex app to use HMs in certain situations, but since you're able to press A anytime you're facing an obstacle and some legend Bidoof comes to save the day, it's a very minor gripe at best. There's plenty of other small things that I can point to as being positives in this game. The remastered soundtrack, the streamlined inventory navigation, being able to get Arceus without having to use an action replay, even if you do need 100% completion in Pokemon Legends Arceus. I certainly stand by what I said in my previous video. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl aren't what I wanted from a Sinnoh remake or a remaster, and based on many of the comments in that video, it doesn't seem like I'm alone in feeling that way. However, ILCA rolled with the punches and did the best that they could. Given the time, budget, and publisher constraints that they had to work with, it sucks that I even have to rationalize my acceptance of these games like this, but making a game is challenging. And even though our expectations for a Nintendo property are a bit higher, and even though ILCA was able to basically copy and paste most of the original code into the new ones, as the studio's first real game, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl aren't as bad as they too easily could have been. It's still not worth $60, especially a year after release. And also Platinum's still better.